PRISM is really the culmination of my life work to this point. It's an intersection between a desire to create a future where your average person is empowered to lead their own lives, to author their future. I think the world is at a place right now where we really need to find our stride as individuals. I think we also have a lot of criticism towards people who could be leading that aren't, who may be sensitives or healers or poets or artists who don't feel qualified to lead because there's this judgment about what it looks like to actually be a leader. In the work of PRISM, our hope is to create an experience, which is ultimately an experiment, a laboratory, a crucible, an environment in which men and women can explore their own innate quantum potential as leaders of their own lives first. Being a leader of one's life is a choice, a decision that we get to make. But how does that actually happen? How do we get access to that really holy, sacred fire within us? Well, after 20 years of living this work, what I call intentional creativity, what comes to mind is this sense of being on earth, of being embodied, of being who we are, of being powerfully oriented to the universe and ourselves and what's possible for our lives. And combining that with the act of intentional creativity to bring the concepts into form. Each of us has a story that we're living out that's often unconscious. When we choose to be a leader of our life, we choose to bring our story into full consciousness. When we bring our story into full consciousness, there's a sense of potency and power that becomes available. It has nothing to do with leading anyone else. It has only to do with starting with really falling in love with leading yourself. Jonathan and I plan to give a real context around things that fascinate us, that we've discussed over thousands of cafes, about how the universe works, how things actually grow, how water actually flows, the way the universe is designed inside the matrix. What does it really mean to consider Einstein's theory of relativity? What about the golden mean? What about the sacred geometry? What about the perfection of the universe? And how do we look at what's really here? Not beliefs about how the universe works, not assumptions about how it works, but actually looking at it for what it is, the parts we can see, and then correlating that to leadership qualities of how to show up authentically. We're going to look at quantum physics principles as a way to lead one's life. And in each of the 8 modules about conscious leadership, we're going to bring each module into color and form and symbol right onto the canvas. So each concept, although maybe abstract and new for many of us, will be able to be brought right into form so that it can be integrated right into the canvas. The canvas itself is a portal which will become a space, a happening where a new alchemical archetype for you can arise, breaking apart the old archetypal patterns that we may not even be aware that we're stuck inside of. Nothing about positive or negative, just we don't know the structure we're living inside of. And in the work of intentional creativity with Color of Woman and all the work that I do, there's a real sense of a need for a new archetype leading us into the future. Thinking about it, I start to cry. I think, what if leaders and entrepreneurs and businessmen and businesswomen and bankers and doctors and lawyers and housewives and waitresses, what if we were walking around conscious of who we are and our connection to the universe and the impact that we have We live in a responsive universe. Everything is responding to us. Everything is connected, and yet we're living our life in this world as if we're separate, and therefore we're creating a future that doesn't appear sustainable to the statistics. But I have a ridiculous faith in creation, of how things are actually designed by wisdom, by the Creator, that if we wake up through discovering creation itself, within the context of choosing to author our own future as individuals, and we bring that into form through creating and practice it in our lives with our big ideas, that we will create an environment in which there are more people awake, alive, informed by love, and who are willing to participate in the turning of the great cosmic wheel. Each of us comes to this path from a different place. I come to the path through my spiritual walk, my faith in the future, and my unreasonable desire to stand shoulder to shoulder about what we care about in the world and heart to heart, so that we can really see and be with each other and embody the gift held inside of each of us. In PRISM, the Leadership Laboratory, there's an opportunity to step into a new context for how we operate as the leaders of our own lives. In addition to the painting and the teachings, there's conversation, and really there's celebration, because each of us has followed a red thread to this moment. In the philosophy around the symbol of prism, our thinking is that we are each, as human beings, a prism, a crystal, if you will. Our bones are made of a crystalline form. We're filled with water, which are crystalline forms, and that when the light of love shines through our inert possibility, we become awake, and on the other side, our life gets created in full color. And our body, our luminous body, that quantum field that surrounds every single one of us, gets to be informed, healed, and cleared in a way that when we're not being conscious about how we're leading our lives, it simply stays stuck and misinformed and asleep. The quantum field is as real as our physical body, and yet we're barely talking about it in terms of its real correlation to what's possible in leadership. When we gather together for this kind of event, we'll be together for a period of span of 4 days. There's an opportunity to work on clearing our own field. In this work of intentional creativity isn't about someone who is needing to be enlightened, brilliant, and charismatic. It's about them just willing to become themselves. And it puts the ownership and responsibility on the individual to do their own work instead of an external healer, shaman, or source, although those are also helpful. But in intentional creativity, the responsibility is on the individual to be their own inner healer and energy mover, to make space for leadership to arise. And the rest of us are there, either in person or in the quantum field, really holding space for each individual person to come into their own variation of greatness. Each of us has a part. Each of us holds a thread in the weave. We need to empower ourselves to take a hold of our peace and do our sacred work, that which our soul calls for. And in stepping into that very risky place, leadership arises as a natural part of the human experience. We present PRISM, a leadership laboratory, to you with great heart, profound humility at the absolute awesome creation that we live inside of, care for that ecosystem and our connection to the cosmos. As my teacher Sue says, we're each cooling sacks of stardust inhabiting this form. This is our cosmic address. PRISM is an invitation to move in to this body, into this vessel, on this earth, at this time, in these circles that we're gathering. And I pray with all my heart that the right people are called together, that the project is blessed by the divine, and that Jonathan and I may be of service to all who are gathered. Amen and aho.